Hello, welcome to a new edition of the Right Wing Populist podcast. I am the Right Wing Populist. So today I wanted to talk about these emails that were released a couple days ago exposing how desperate and how badly the Biden regime, the Democrats, wanted to put Trump in jail, how desperate they were, and how they were potentially looking to bring more charges against Trump after the 2024 election if he had lost. But before we get to that, a couple of things. Number one, I just want to briefly talk about the ceasefire. It looks like the ceasefire is holding between Iran and Israel, which is great to see. Trump was at NATO today. He's made it very clear he doesn't want us to get involved any further. Definitely no regime change, at least not with our backing. And that's great to hear. It's great to see. Trump, it was looking a little dicey over the past weekend when Trump started tweeting out or truthing how regime change maybe wouldn't be the worst thing, even though it's not politically correct to talk about. So I was a little concerned, but he got the ceasefire. It looks like it's holding, and he's making it very clear that he thinks, as far as he's concerned, we bombed the shit out of their nuclear program and we've set them back years. CNN and New York Times are trying to report stories suggesting that's not the case, but you can't trust those outlets. And I think Trump just wants out of the conflict now. As far as Trump is concerned, mission accomplished, and he actually means that, unlike Bush, after he took out Saddam. He actually means mission accomplished. So that's good. Good to see, and I'm happy we're not getting dragged into another Middle Eastern war, which Trump promised during all three of his presidential elections, actually. So that's great news. And the other thing I want to just remind you guys, please subscribe, whether it's on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. I really appreciate the support, and it means a lot. So yes, a couple days ago, there was a report, I think originally in the New York Post, that some new emails from the Biden DOJ was released, and talking about how they wanted to pursue more charges potentially against Trump. And there's an article in the news outlet Town Hall that sort of breaks in the details, and I wanted to read from it just to give you some context. Quote, "We already knew the Justice Department under former President Joe Biden was gunning for President Donald Trump, but we didn't know it was this bad. The New York Post published an explosive report showing that FBI agents were exploring whether they could charge Trump for participating in a song made for the families of those railroaded for the January 6th riots at the U.S. Capitol building, according to internal emails given to the news outlet." And this is them quoting the New York Post story. "Internal FBI emails reveal that rogue agents and prosecutors in the Biden DOJ were looking for ways to pile on new criminal charges against Donald Trump over the January 6th Capitol riot, this time over his involvement with the J6 prisoner choir, based on a single partisan news article. The 2023 emails obtained by Senate Judiciary Committee Chairman Chuck Grassley of Iowa, Republican, and revealed exclusively in the Post are an example of the nitpicking malice of anti-Trump lawfare that tainted special counsel Jack Smith's investigation during Joe Biden's presidency." And this is them quoting one of the FBI officials. "Can we do some work to nail down Trump's role in this?" writes prosecutor J.P. Cooney to DOJ colleagues on March 8, 2023, in an email in the subject line, "J6 Prisoner Choir DJT," an attached Forbes.com article titled, "Trump Collaborates on Song with January 6 Defendants." Cooney was a deputy special counsel who worked on both Robert Mueller and Jack Smith's special counsel investigations. The point of contention was a Forbes article reporting that Trump recorded the Pledge of Allegiance at Mar-a-Lago to use in the song. The proceeds from the song were meant to go to the families of the J6ers. The agents discussed launching an investigation to the LLC owned by Ed Henry, which was involved with the project. The purpose was to gather evidence for the witch hunt. And, the story goes on and on and on. And essentially what these emails show is that how just deranged these Biden DOJ prosecutors were to go after Trump for January 6th. And it really just exposes what a fraud the whole Jack Smith January 6th prosecution was. You know, the reason why it took so long to charge Trump for January 6th, much to the chagrin of all the liberals in the country, was because Trump actually didn't commit any crimes. And in fact, the New York Times even acknowledged, which is no friend to Trump, obviously, that, sort of the traditional ways you would try to go after someone in connection to a riot, the Biden DOJ investigated and they couldn't pin Trump to anything. They couldn't pin him to any of the rioters. Trump, during his speech, said to protest peacefully and patriotically. So he didn't incite anything. That's why incitement wasn't part of the Jack Smith charges. So the reason why the Biden DOJ took so long, at least in part, to charge Trump is they couldn't come up with any conventional way to prosecute him for January 6th. That's why they had to come up with these convoluted, novel legal theories to finally charge him. I mean, the reality is if Trump decided not to run for the 2024 election, he probably wouldn't have been charged ultimately. He definitely wouldn't have been charged if he hadn't have run and if the January 6th committee in Congress hadn't gotten so much media attention, put so much public pressure on the Biden DOJ. I mean, those two factors are the real reason Trump was charged. It wasn't because he committed any crime. He didn't. Again, he never called for violence on January 6th. Okay. He was just supporting the January 6th families who were railroaded. I mean, that's true. That's why the pardons, I think, even though I wouldn't have personally, I would have done more of a case-by-case basis. If you actually look at the details in many of these January 6th cases, many of these people were railroaded. I mean, if you actually think Trump supporters can get fair trials in the District of Columbia, then you're just extremely naive. Okay, that District of Columbia votes over 90% Democrat. And there's some of the most partisan Democrats as well. I mean, it's D.C. So Trump trying just to support these families by helping with this song, that wasn't a crime, but they were looking for ways to try to connect Trump to January 6th to charge him. It was ridiculous. That's why they couldn't really charge Trump directly with the riot. They had to go with, he had alternative slates of electors. That whole garbage. I mean, by the way, we've had alternative slates of electors before. We had that with Richard Nixon. I believe we had it at least one other time when there was another election that was in doubt. This was not like Trump's lawyers suggesting that you can have competing slates of electors. That was not a new legal theory. That was, a controversial but not novel sort of constitutional theory that if the election is in doubt or if there's unresolved issues regarding an election, that you have the competing slates of electors for Congress to choose to certify if they believe if there was a problem with the election, or if down the line there's an election contest and the person contesting the results is successful. I mean, that's why the Trump's electors in Georgia signed off that they were, electors, was because Trump's election lawsuit in Georgia was still pending. It hadn't been heard yet. And let's say it was eventually heard and Trump had won, then Trump would have been entitled to those electors. That's why Trump's electors said they were official electors, even though the state did. It's true, the state didn't they recognized Biden's electors, not Trump's. But Trump's electors sort of had to do it because of the fact that Trump's election contest in Georgia was still pending. And this is like the serious crime that Trump committed that, the Biden DOJ tried to put Trump in jail for. It was retarded. So these emails are disturbing. And the fact that you had a lot of people, not just Jack Smith, but one of the people who actually argued at the Supreme Court over the issue of immunity, he was someone who worked for Robert Mueller. You had a lot of people who would work with Robert Mueller, then also worked on Jack Smith's case. You had these left-wing prosecutors that just have wanted to go after Trump for years. So this idea that, the Biden DOJ, they're just trying to, no one's above the law. It doesn't matter if he's a former president or he's running again. It's like, no, this was all political. It was all political. And the fact that they were looking for ways to charge Trump for being a part of the January 6th choir, it just shows you how deranged these people were. Trump was right to call Jack Smith deranged. Jack Smith had deranged people working for him all over the place. These were deranged people. That's part of the reason why it was so important that Trump won the 2024 election is we don't want lawfare in this country. It would have been a terrible precedent that, you know, that we charge leading presidential candidates with crimes to make sure they lose the election. And if Trump had lost, it would have sent a signal to the left and potentially the right in the future that if you think you can't win an election, you go after them criminally. Like, also, let's not be naive. Part of the reason they also probably felt the need to charge Trump was because everyone knew that Biden was cooked, right? Like the Biden DOJ, they all knew they were interacting with Biden. Merrick Garland was interacting with Biden. They knew that he wasn't playing with the full deck, so they probably felt like they needed to charge Trump to try to even the playing field. You can believe that. That was probably part of the calculus that, hey, Joe Biden has dementia. Trump's definitely going to win. So we need to make sure we charge him now that Trump is going to run, or Biden has no chance of winning. That's how, that may sound sort of conspiratorial, but that's how sick some of these people are. So it's an amazing thing that Trump was able to overcome it. And we need to have a full investigation of all these Trump cases. We should investigate Jack Smith. We should investigate Fani Willis. I think we are investigating the New York Attorney General. I'm blanking on her name. It'll come to me. Loretta James, I believe is her name. Investigate her. Investigate Alvin Bragg. We should investigate these people. Investigate Norm Eisen. I've talked about this on the website. I've done articles about this. Norm Eisen is seemingly behind a lot of this anti-Trump lawfare since the beginning, since Mueller, since the whole Russiagate scam. There are left-wing people that have their tentacles intertwined with all these Trump cases. Barbara McCoy, who worked for or has worked for MSNBC. There's a lot of these individuals that seemingly have they're connected, and it's very strange, and it should be investigated. You could frankly probably charge some of these people for interfering in the 2024 election using similar theories they went after Trump for interfering in the 2020 election by saying that there was a conspiracy against the voters' rights to vote for the presidential candidate they want by doing this illegitimate lawfare against Trump to try to prevent him from winning the election. You could, hey, look, if it's good for the goose, it's good for the gander, right? If you can charge Trump for these ridiculous crimes, why can't we charge these other people, right? But I don't know. Kash Patel and Pam Bondi are too busy going on Fox News, I think, to do any real investigation, so I don't think that's going to happen, unfortunately. But it's something to think about for sure. And thank God we overcame it, because they would have put Trump in jail if he'd lost the 2024 election. Make no mistake about it. And if a Republican doesn't win the 2028 presidential election, they may still try to put Trump in jail after he leaves in 2029. That's a real risk. The state case in Georgia, Fani Willis got disqualified from it, but the case is technically still alive. It's functionally dead, but, I could see a crazy Democrat prosecutor trying to bring back. There's a statute of limitations issue, thankfully, so they probably would have to come up with new charges, I guess, unless they tried to argue that the statute of limitations was told during Trump's presidency, because you can't indict a sitting president. But there will, I still think Trump does have some criminal risk once he leaves the White House again, because these Democrats are insane. Now, maybe not, because, he won't be able to run again. He'd be 82. So maybe they'll finally show some restraint, but they haven't shown restraint against Trump yet. And again, they would have put Trump in a cage if he had lost the 2024 election. Trump's freedom was really on the line. And that's what makes this story so remarkable. He overcame indictments, impeachments, assassination attempts, and he's the fucking president again. Trump really is an amazing guy. Even though I was frustrated with him a week ago for the escalating tensions with Iran, he is an amazing person, and he did get the ceasefire. So, I wanted to talk about this story because it's a good reminder that these people on the left, they're sick, and they were trying to put our president in jail, and we're trying to prevent the American people from voting for the president they wanted. And you should not forget that going forward. It's very important. Anyway, that's it for today. Thanks for listening, guys. Hope you have a good rest of your day. Remember to subscribe. Bye-bye.